Alrighty, my qualifications for this video are as follows. I grew up an only child, no siblings, no built-in best friend, in a really quiet house, just my mom, my dad, my grandmother. I also didn't have full access to a cell phone and social media until I was about 17, which means I spent the majority of my life being alone, doing things alone, getting really comfortable with my own thoughts. On top of that, I also moved across the world from Canada to London, United Kingdom. I've been here for almost a year, all by myself, no family or built-in friends here, although I've made some now, which leads to my next qualification, and that is while I'm comfortable with being alone, I also really do value human connection, and I've managed to build a multi-six-figure freelance business off the back of communication, networking, building with other people. So I think I have a good balance of both sides, and I know a lot of people struggle with going out into the world alone. So let's talk about it. It's definitely not controversial for me to say that most people are afraid of being alone because they're afraid of hearing their own thoughts. A lot of us in our 20s, 30s have grown up in a world that has normalized constant stimulation, whether it's music, podcasts, social media, doom scrolling. The art of being bored, the art of just silence and allowing your subconscious mind to run free has been lost. People are afraid of boredom. Boredom is seen as bad, unpleasant, and a space that needs to be constantly filled. Thankfully, as I've mentioned with my qualifications, I have learned to enjoy boredom and I also see the benefit in it. And that's basically what I want to share today. And not that I don't struggle with it, because I do, but I genuinely don't have a problem with being alone. I like myself and most of my thoughts don't scare me. Of course, you have some things that come up here and there, or you go through a hard time and it gets a little bit difficult and you have your vices and whatnot. Everybody does. I'm human. So of course I have those moments, but I will say I've definitely been disobedient to the current kind of cultural landscape, at least in the West, of anti-boredom. I'm not falling for the trap. I really think this is important to talk about because the more you outsource stimulation, right, is the more that you struggle to have will, to have motivation, or to simply have your own thoughts. And that's the big one, because most of us have outsourced our thinking, right? And now with AI, don't get me wrong, I love ChatGPT, I love Miss Chat, but with that, on top of all of the other stimulation we have, we really don't have to think at all. And I mean, thinking is like the heart, the soul of being human, right? So it's important that we get comfortable with our own thoughts and feel the desire to and appreciate thinking and coming up with ideas and being alone with yourself and feeling okay with that. And don't get it twisted. I am not Miss Hyper Independent. I actually believe that you are your true self really when you're with other people. I think there's this idea that when you're alone, that's who you really are. But as someone who's been alone most of my life, especially just growing up, I realized that being with people actually brings out a side of you that you cannot see or fully show through when you are by yourself. Because I believe that we are wired for connection, and your identity, who you are, is shaped through contrast, through being mirrored, being witnessed. That's very important. But you also need solitude. If you don't have solitude, you will lose your inner compass. And if you will lose your inner compass as a retired people pleaser who abandoned herself for many years as well. I lost this art, in the mix of social media and doom scrolling and having constant stimulation, and coming back to self was the best thing I ever did. And here's the thing, silence is not only sovereignty, but silence allows you to have ordered thought, and ordered thought allows you to elevate in every area of your life, not only for yourself, but for your relationships, the people around you. For lack of better terms, set less expectations on the people in your life. Again, not that it matters, because I do believe in community and I don't think you can be your true self without being alone. But when you are too reliant on the people around you and the bar for them is so high, you set an unrealistic expectation that they're basically supposed to live your life for you or help you in that manner. You can have really fulfilling romantic and platonic relationships where you are not reliant on their ordered thoughts or their disordered thoughts to make the decisions in your life or to give you constant validation. There is power, there is sovereignty in achieving something and not having to tell a soul, because you have more than enough validation from yourself. So it's not about cutting people off or being Miss Independent, but it's about knowing who you are truly when no one else is speaking to you, And this is important because self appraisal, knowing how to accurately assess yourself and then make changes based on your assessment, is what's going to drive you forward in life to really help your development process. And what happens is a lot of people have people around them that give them bad advice or advice that doesn't necessarily align with who they are. And then they don't know who they are. They don't know what thoughts are theirs or thoughts that leaked into their mind through scrolling or social media or music or whatever. So their self-assessment is wrong, and therefore they don't drive in the right direction, or they never truly meet their higher self. The problem is when you never sit with yourself, you never develop the muscle of trusting yourself and your own decisions. This might be you too, who can't even go to a restaurant and choose a meal. They need someone else to validate that choice, or it takes so much cognitive effort for them to make the choice, or it feels so out of place and just nerve-wracking and daunting to choose something as small as a meal to eat. But something as small as a meal to eat, knowing what's going to nourish you, knowing what makes you feel good, what makes you doesn't feel good, what your body is craving, something as small as that is so intuitive. That's so, you should be able to dig in and know what you want and what you desire, right? Biologically, that's what's supposed to happen. And in those small decisions too, you train for the bigger decisions. But what happens is if you can't do the small decisions, then you have a big decision to make, like maybe what university or what career choice, or if you should take on a client, or if you should start a business. You're unable to make those decisions for yourself. You have to outsource that thinking to other friends who are not aligned with you. And then again, you're stuck in this loop of following a path that isn't yours, that is basically a comment section of the people around you. So as I mentioned before, I grew up an only child. It was a pretty strict home as well. I wasn't allowed to watch TV late at night or have like my phone in my room, even when I did have a phone at nighttime. I had cousins, thankfully, who I was able to build those social skills with, and I went to school. I wasn't like homeschooled or anything. But with that being said, I got very comfortable with silence. And when I lost that because of social media and music and streaming and all that stuff, what I did to get to that point again was just learn to protect my silence and not see silence as negative. So as an example, even when doing schoolwork in uni, I would just blast music while I was doing it, thinking, oh, this is going to give me motivation. Or, I used to actually pride myself in the fact that I could write essays and listen to music with lyrics. But really, I was just so terrified of who I was inside when I look back. So in order to curb that, I had to protect my silence and do the hard work of not drowning out every moment of zen with something or someone. I would bounce back and forth between protecting my silence in that way. But then what I did was lean into friends and constantly needing to have a love interest. And obviously that can be layered, especially for women, like constantly feeling like you want to be in a relationship or be really codependent with a friend. That it's not a topic just about getting comfortable being alone, but they all kind of come together at the end of the day. What really, really, really took me to the next level though was when I started building my freelance business, I started to have to make decisions even more. I started to have to think about choosing clients, saying no to clients. What should I do for this copy? Should I choose this headline, that headline? Should I send this email now? Should I wait till later? And it was multiple decisions every day. And I had friends and maybe even love interests at the time who I would text and I would confide in to help this. If you're one that can't make decisions and you're constantly outsourcing your decision making, you'll notice that people start to get annoyed after a certain time, or even if they don't say it, you can feel the energy and it doesn't feel good, but you physically feel like you can't move forward without outsourcing your decision making. But then at the same time, their negative energy makes you feel like, oh, you don't love me or you don't respect me or whatever. I've been there and it's not a good place to be. You actually find power and build true confidence, not look in the mirror affirmation confidence, but true confidence when you make decisions, the decisions turn out to be good or right or aligned, and it makes you feel empowered, and that ultimately makes you feel confident. So tactical tips for getting to this point, if you can relate to a bunch of the things I'm saying or feel like, yeah, this could be a problem, start small. Instead of texting your mom or your friend or your boyfriend, oh, should I get oat milk? Should I get skim milk? Should I get a matcha? Should I get a latte? Don't outsource the little tiny things that you used to, or you think that are trivial. It doesn't matter if I do this. Stop with the little outsourcing and really make those decisions for yourself every day, especially if you're a ChatGPT person, because that can go left real quick. You don't need to ask ChatGPT what you should drink. You don't need to ask her what you should do today. Start with the small things and then build. Second thing, cut out quote unquote harmless noise. Even the podcast you think that's productive or teaching you something, or even this video that you might be playing in the background while you're doing work, isn't helping you in the process. It's probably you just trying to drown out your own thoughts. you need to hear your thoughts and you need to force silence and boredom. If you do that in the little moments where it's hard, i.e., in the shower, sometimes I hear people say they scroll in the shower and it scares me. Start with that little shower moment, eating when you're eating dinner moment. Get used to just that silence and see where it takes you. See where that silence take you. Where does your brain go? I will say 90% of the time, I don't eat with music when I'm walking to the gym in the mornings, for example. I don't listen to music. On my way back, I might listen to a podcast, but not all the time. It's very intentional, I would say. There are a lot of apps out there that can help you. You can go to the settings on your phone and you can set a time limit for apps. So you can set a time limit how long you can be on Spotify or YouTube. So that way you're actually more intentional. Okay, I have 40 minutes for the day. I'm going to save it for this time. Or you can use an app like Freedom, which blocks apps for you. You can set reoccurring time limits on there. Pay for the premium version as well. This is not sponsored or anything. And I found this through one of my favorite Substack authors. She talks a lot about the type of stuff that I actually make videos on, but sounding much more eloquent and in written form. But I would say spending a couple dollars a month on an app that will save you years because of all the time that you spend drowning out your thoughts and also help you improve yourself and find a zest for life is the best couple bucks you can spend, right? I'm sure you spend a couple bucks a month on stuff that is probably making you feel poorly. So apps, block them when you can, be intentional about how you use them, and don't constantly try and fill the space. Journal, this was a big one, probably my favorite one that really helped me, especially when I started to feel resentment towards the people in my life when I would share things and I would feel like, they don't care as much as I do, or you could feel that they were getting annoyed, or I'd ask a question and you could feel that, this was not the right answer. Like, why am I getting mad that their answer for something that I should just be able to make the decision of myself is not what I wanted to hear, or bad, or I know it's not aligned with me? Duh, you're supposed to look inward. So what I started to do was, this was just intuitive, but has really helped me, is just journal. Ask yourself, and through writing and putting the pen on paper, like genuinely journaling in that way, you start to answer the questions. I like to film on my laptop, for example, little video journal entries, but writing hits different. When you're writing, you are thinking more intentionally about what you're writing. So it creates space for you to think more and do this in silence. I used to even journal and have to have music playing in the background. You don't need music playing in the background to set the vibe. Set the vibe in your own mind. And then go do things alone on purpose without your headphones. Maybe if you want, start with your headphones. Go to a museum, go to on a coffee date for 30 minutes, then scale it up the next time, go to a dinner. And as I said, it's best if you do it without headphones, because I see a lot of content like, I'm going on a solo date, and then they're spending their whole time watching a YouTube video. It's like, are you really on a solo date? You're just drowning out your thoughts, right? Start small. If you can't go on a walk without headphones or something like that, go do that. Get comfortable with your thoughts, get comfortable with your inner dialogue, and then move on to something longer, and then consistently do that. You can do something like go on a trip alone, for example, which does take a lot of guts, but we live in probably the best time for you to be able to do stuff like that. Like, I travel alone all the time. Obviously, moved across the world by myself, travel all around Europe by myself. And something that I find so interesting, and I feel so blessed, that we live in a time where I don't have to print out a map and worry about language barriers and all that stuff. I go to a country with a different language that I have no idea how to speak, and I could take a picture of the menu and get it fully translated for me, travel around with a couple apps on my phone. I don't even need to take cash out sometimes. I can just tap my card. It's insane. Like, it's so easy. Like, all the little things that would probably be an extra driver for people who are nervous about being alone are taken care of. So it's like the step, really, the main step that you have to worry about is getting comfortable with your thoughts and who you are. And I also think that this is really important because, especially for women, it allows you to get used to treating yourself and setting an expectation for how you treat yourself. Because if you truly love yourself and are able to take yourself out, buy yourself flowers alone, and do these things and romanticize your life, you are less likely to accept a sneaky link who's not even willing to buy you lunch. You know what I mean? Like, I noticed that a lot of my close friends who maybe see the way I live and adopt the same philosophy and try and do things alone or whatever, really valuing who they then spend their time with, because they've raised the bar and treated themselves in a way where, if I can treat myself like this and I have this, validation for myself, and I love my life in the way that it is now, and I know my thoughts and I feel good with them, then what you're willing to accept from other people, especially men, if you're straight or whatever, is going to be much more intentional and thoughtful and curated to the bar that you've already set for yourself. And lastly, I probably said this for all of them, but again, one of my favorites is witness your own life from like a third person perspective. Why are you acting the way you do? Why do you feel like you need to ask this person about whether you should make a decision? Why do you feel like you need to constantly be with someone or you need to FaceTime someone while you're getting your groceries? Like, what is pulling you to be seen in that way? Why do you need someone's reaction for some small thing that you accomplished today? Not that you don't. And this is the whole point of this part. Don't judge yourself. Just perceive yourself from that perspective. Assess your decision making and assess why you're doing certain things, what you're seeking from certain people, and think about it. This will probably be the biggest step in moving you forward. So, yeah, you don't need to be a lone wolf, but you do need to stop handing out your self-worth, decision making, identity to the group chat. Build a relationship with yourself that feels like peace, that feels like commitment, because at the end of the day, you are the only person who you will be with for the rest of your life. It's just you and your little brain, whether you want to separate that or not. And doing this will likely also help you go get paid. Bye.